Well, Oregon's got the game day game for the second time in 3 weeks against Utah, and once again, they're on the road. And the Utes present a unique kind of challenge that Oregon hasn't faced this year. Here we go.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. So if you have not already, like, comment, subscribe, rate, review, please. And thank you wherever you listen to or watch the show. We are inching closer to 4,000 on YouTube. I'll be a happy camper if we get there before Saturday. I have confidence we'll get there soon. Thank you so much. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Utah, unsung heroes, and the matchup with Utah at a glance, all coming up here on today's show. But Utah presents a unique challenge, not just because they're the best defense that Oregon has faced this season, but because they're a team that just wins football games. It sounds simple, but if I told you that Utah wins a lot of football games, you'd say, well, they have a great defense. Okay, yeah, they do. But they've shown over the last couple of years, they don't have to win a slugfest. It doesn't have to be low scoring. Remember, Rice Eccles last year, they beat USC 43-42. They beat USC on the road just this past week, 34-32. It's not exactly a low scoring slugfest. It's a little bit closer to a shootout of sorts. The reason they're able to win all these football games in a variety of different ways, the defense is the foundation of what they do. Absolutely. Not trying to argue that. The reason they can win in more than one way is Kyle Whittingham is really, really good. Kyle Whittingham is really, really good in just about every facet when it comes to game management, clock management, not having critical errors, having guys in the right position, making players well coached, and playing consistent football throughout the course of the season, playing their best, getting the most out of the recruits that he brings in. This is not a program that recruits at a high level. Utah is top 30, top 40 or so every year. Every now and then they sneak towards the top 20, not normally. They don't bring in a bunch of high-star recruits. They just manage them as a coaching staff in a way that makes them a really, really good program. It's why they've been so good. I start my show with this today because it was fueled by a mailbag question, which is always open. YouTube comments or Twitter at @Smalls_55 or at Locked On Ducks. Been getting a lot of them this week, and I will answer them all before Saturday's game in Salt Lake City. And no, unfortunately, I will not be able to attend. Southern Utah has a game Saturday afternoon against Abilene Christian. But if you want priority mailbag access and to become a Locked On Ducks insider, getting reactions, news, analysis, and every thought that I've got about the Ducks and chance to talk with me one-on-one, join the Locked On Ducks SUBTEXT community. It's a free 14-day trial, then just $5 a month. But this mailbag question came in from Brian. Spencer, do you think our in-game adjustments will be as effective against such an experienced coaching staff in Utah? These last 2 weeks have been against new coaches in the Pac. So Kalen DeBoer, Jake Dickert are in their second and third years at the helm, respectively. Kyle Whittingham is in, I think this is year 18 or 19. He is Utah football. He is the man up there. He can coach as long as he wants. He is the Bill Belichick of the Utes football program. Okay, basically a lifetime contract, coach as long as you want, defensive guy. Whittingham, I think, is a little bit more personable, gives a little bit more to the media, but wins at a high level and just finds a way to win a lot of football games. So Kyle Whittingham is the best coach in the Pac-12. I love Dan Lanning. He beat Kyle Whittingham head-to-head last year with a hobbled Bo Nix. I thought it was Oregon's best defensive effort of the season. I think it was Dan Lanning's best coaching effort of the season. And I think Lanning is a very good coach, and he's proven that. Utah has not lost a game with fans in attendance in Salt Lake City since 2018, when they lost to the eventual Pac-12 champion, Washington Huskies. This is not a team that loses often in front of their home fans. It's 18 or 19 in a row when fans are actually in attendance there. It's a great crowd. I love Utah fans, respect them immensely, and I respect their coaching staff immensely, because when you think about coaching staffs that can't make adjustments or have blunders or make questionable decisions or don't have their guys ready or come in with a bad game plan. Any sort of criticism of a coaching staff like that does not apply to this Utah team and the program writ large. It doesn't happen. Morgan Scalley, their defensive coordinator, Andy Ludwig, their offensive coordinator. Ludwig, this is true, was courted by Notre Dame. They thought they had him dead to rights as their next offensive coordinator. He said, nah, I'm going to stay with Utah. That's telling about what Ludwig can do offensively. He's not dealing with personnel like what Will Stein has at Oregon. And I talked on yesterday's show about how I think Will Stein's a good offensive coordinator doing a very good job. Utah's offensive numbers this year aren't gaudy, aren't impressive. They only throw for about 160, 170 yards a game because they're dealing with backup quarterbacks. But look at the teams they've beaten this year. They beat Florida. They completely dominated. Florida's a 5-2 football team. At the very least, they're solid. Baylor is fighting to be a 500 team. Utah played them on the road. Again, no Cam Rising. Won the football game, 20-13. USC last week. USC's got a lot more star talent. I think Oregon's roster is better than USC's. USC's roster, from a star perspective and a talent standpoint, certainly better than Utah's. But Utah won the game. Utah's only loss this year is at Oregon State, a good football team. Utah beat UCLA at home. How? They completely thwarted the Bruins offense. And they got a pick six of Dante Moore. And they didn't let the Bruins run the football or really do much of anything. These guys outperform their recruiting expectations. They are well coached through and through. And their game plans are just exceptional. Which brings me to Brian's question. Are Oregon's in-game adjustments, which I think have been really good this year, and the second half defensive stats reflect that so far this season, especially the last few weeks, is it going to be as effective against such an experienced coaching staff? The answer is yes. It just depends on how you adjust to the adjustments. The coaching here is going to be such a huge factor because it's one of Utah's biggest advantages. They knew going into that game against USC, they're not going to be able to throw the football a lot with Bryson Barnes. They'll do it a little, but they also know USC, they can't defend the run very well. So let's just line up and run the football. When Utah went to the Wildcat look, they knew that Utah was going to run it. They still couldn't stop it. And Utah just kept running it over and over and over again to the tune of 34 points and a game-winning drive on the road at the Coliseum. So this coaching staff relies on execution, fundamentals, and a good game plan. And Oregon has to come out with the right game plan. But Dan Lanning's got to be on his game. And Tosh Lupoy and Chris Hampton and everybody, they've got to be on their game. Because when you watch this Utah team, they make adjustments really well. They come in with really good game plans. There's no element of Utah's coaching staff. And this is why I said at the top of the show that there's such a unique challenge. There's no element that you can exploit in a major way other than maybe a talent advantage. Bryson Barnes is not one of the most talented quarterbacks in the Pac-12. He would not start on any other Pac-12 contender. Yet he is at the forefront of everybody's minds for a team going for its third consecutive Pac-12 championship because he is well coached. The team is well schemed. They are really, really smart. I wouldn't describe them as clever. I don't think they're amazingly explosive all the time. They don't have an elite cadre of weapons, but they're able to do enough. They are just the kings of finding a way. They just find ways to win, whether that's running the football a lot, whether that's relying on their defense, getting defensive scores, which they've been the best at in the country over the last decade or so, generating defensive touchdowns. They do all the little stuff well, all of it, all the time. And that's why they are able to play above what the talent on their roster would tell you. They've got a couple NFL players over there. Absolutely. Do they have as many as I think Oregon does? Nope. Can Oregon lose this game? Yep, they absolutely can. I feel really good about the Ducks. But that advantage is Utah's greatest strength and why Dan Lanning and his staff have to be at the absolute top of their game going into Salt Lake City, even going up against a backup quarterback. Utah is really impressive. They prove it week in and week out. They're just really good at winning football games, whatever that looks like. Oregon's won 6 football games this year, and we know the standout guys, the Bo Nixes, Troy Franklins, Bucky Irvings of the world, unsung heroes. There are many of them. Jace Metal can be more than just an unsung hero for you. It can be a sung hero if that's the proper counter to being unsung of sorts. Jace Medical is a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. You can also customize your case and add additional life-saving medications based on your unique needs. With all the uncertainty in the world, supply chains can get messy and deliveries aren't always, sent on time. It can be really hard. You want to be prepared for any situation out there, which is why you need the Jace case. Go to jacemedical.com, enter code locked on at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That's promo code locked on at jasemedical.com for $20 off of your order. Go get your Jace case today. You can get Oregon right now at -6.5, according to our friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. If you think that line is too small, or if you think it's too big and you want to see Oregon win, but you don't think they're winning by more than 4 or 5 points, and you think Utah covers, then maybe you want to go bet that at FanDuel. However you're feeling, you can get your gambling fix over at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, whether you win or lose. That easy. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app, really easy to use. They've got spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon, kick off the NFL season, and get your college football gambling fix as well. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Second segment, Sips, official partner of me to keep me nourished and going. All right, unsung heroes. I like this point. So yesterday on the show, I did, as I always do on a Tuesday show, talking about the individual standouts that I thought made a great impact on the previous Saturday, whatever that game was. So I asked some of you, actually asked all of you, whoever listened to or watched the show, if you're an everydayer out there, thank you so much for doing that. If you're a Locked On Ducks insider over at SUBTEXT, thank you for doing that. I said, well, who stood out to you? Those are the individuals that stood out to me. What about you? And that got us, courtesy of, my guy Nathan, into the realm of unsung heroes this season. And he brought up a couple names I thought were really, really good. Number 1, Jeffrey Bassa. Jeffrey Bassa did not have the best season for Oregon last year, bulked up, and I think it's making a big difference. He grades better on PFF. I think the eye test is even better than what his grade over there indicates. He has been at the centerpiece, or at the center point. He's been a focal point of the Oregon defense without loudly being a focal point of the Oregon defense. He's 3rd on the team with 32 tackles this season. Does that surprise you? Because he hasn't made all the flashy impact plays per se, but he's had quarterback pressures. He's had quarterback hurries. He, of course, had the pick 6 against Texas Tech. He is quietly having a really nice season and has developed into a solid linebacker for this Oregon defense. I think Justin Jacobs has got a higher ceiling. I think Jeffrey Bassa's floor has elevated itself to a point, courtesy of himself and the coaching staff, to where we feel good about him on the field. I don't feel ever like he's a liability the way he felt at times in 2022, particularly in the run game, where he got pushed back a lot, where he got, knocked on his backside a number of times. I don't see that this year. I think that his body transformation has been a big benefit for him, and that he has been really good this year. So I liked that call. The other one, Stephen Jones, who's a top 50 guard on PFF, has a passing block graded this year of 89.9. It's hard to get a lot better in the eyes of the Pro Football Focus world, who, as always, I think like stats are a starting point, not an end point, but that is reflective of how I felt about Stephen Jones this year as well. He had a really nice kick out block pulling around on Jordan James's 37-yard run on Saturday that kind of jump-started the Oregon offense. I think Jones, in his 6th year, has been everything we thought he'd be. And by the way, does not appear bothered in any way, shape, or form by Poncho getting in there as a true freshman and taking some real reps. Like, when the game still matters, Poncho's out there and having good games week in and week out. I think that's helping keep Stephen Jones fresh. He's had some injury problems in the past, and I think his staying on the field is partially due to the fact that he doesn't have to play every single snap, and I think that's really, really good. Another unsung hero here at this point in the season, and these guys, much like offensive linemen, often go overlooked because they don't always generate the stats that show up on a box score or that stand out when you peruse the box score, even in great detail. Interior defensive linemen. I liked the depth of this unit coming into this season. Getting Popo back, Dorless returning, Casey Rogers, Taki Taimani, they've been even better than I thought they would be. So whether you're talking about Taki, who's having the best season of his college career by far, Casey Rogers, who we know is solid, Popo is really, really good, like almost Dorless's level, not quite though, at generating interior pressures. When you watch him in a one-on-one with a guard, his handwork is really good. He's got a great array of pass rush moves and has been outstanding this year. And you know a great way to disrupt a quarterback like Bryson Barnes, who is decently mobile, but not like Cameron Ward, who's good enough, but doesn't sling it like Michael Penix? Get pressure up the middle. Pressure off the edge, yep, that can do a lot. Can also create lanes for quarterbacks to run to the outside. You get pressure up the middle, you can just completely disrupt an offense. That's how Arizona State was able to throw Washington off their game and give them their worst offensive outing of the season, was they were getting pressure up the middle, and Penix, not super mobile, was just out of sync the entire game. I think that these guys could play a big role in helping to slow down Utah's offense, and we know that they're going to run the football a lot. Utah wants to run the football. They don't throw it a ton. They just want to throw it enough, just enough to keep you honest. They want to come out, run the football, play good defense, and win the game. But, Taki Taimani, Casey Rogers, Popo, Brandon Dorless, and then Keon Ware-Hudson. Get this. I was doing a little browsing again in that PFF department, which is a great resource. Of the 11 highest graded interior defensive linemen in the Pac-12, those guys are 5 of the top 11. Popo is number 11, or else if he were up one slot, they would make up half the top 10. 4 of the top 10, 5 of the top 11 in the conference. These guys are playing at a high level, and their ability to, stay healthy and be available on the field, but also to just rotate in and out consistently throughout the course of a game to keep each other fresh, I think is contributing to their production. And we're seeing the same thing at the edge position as well, right? Those guys get a bit more attention, but having Birch and Mateo and Tatum Tuioti, and Blake Purchase got his first sack, and Amarion Winston has been there a little bit, and Jake Shipley has been able to just give guys a little bit of a spell and keep them fresh for key moments, I think has been a big, big thing for this defensive line. And Dan Lanning, we've seen the way he's recruited, right? Brian Smith has talked on this show several times about, I've never seen a guy take 10 defensive linemen in a class. Well, 3 of them are playing real snaps right here, right now. Mateo, Purchase, and Tatum Tuioti. And once these interior guys who are really experienced move on next year, Oregon's going to need those freshmen to step up. But right now, they are a big, big time part of this Oregon defense, and they are definitely unsung heroes. So Jeff Bossa, Stephen Jones, and the interior defensive linemen, I think those are great calls, Nathan, on guys who have flown under the radar but have been integral to Oregon's success so far this year. Another thing defensively that I talked about before the year and has been a recurring topic time and again on this particular show is Oregon's third down defense. And this question came in from my guy Blazer Duck, an everydayer and a routine question asker here on the show. Regular question asker is maybe a better word. Spencer, statistically, how is Oregon doing this year on third down defensive stops versus last year? Well, this didn't take long, but also merits some discussion. 2022, Oregon end of the year, 46.8% allowed on third down. That was outside the top 120 nationally. That's not good. This year, they are 33.7%. Is that among the elite? The best of the best in college football? No. Is that a dramatic improvement? That's a massive improvement. You look at what Washington State did on Saturday. Yeah, they went for 490 some odd yards and 438 of them were through the air. That's all good and fine. What were they on third down? 5 of 14. What were they on fourth? Or excuse me, I think they were 4 of 14 on third down. What were they on fourth? 1 of 4. That's 5 of 18 on the money downs. Oregon's defense didn't have that last year. And you look at the numbers, they are backing up the results on the field, which is the defense is improved, the pressure rate is better, the secondary is playing better, the play calling, has clearly improved. I think Chris Hampton is having an impact for sure. The new co-defense coordinator this season, it's been really good. And would I love to see that number drop under 30% by the end of the year? Absolutely. I would. That's where the elite teams are. The Georgias of the world are in like the 25 to 28% range. But that amount of improvement from almost 47% to just under 34%, that's a really, really good place to be for Oregon's defense. And we've seen that bear a lot of positive fruit on the field and with regards to the scores that Oregon has been able to put up when they ultimately win the football game. So I think it's been much, much better. Certainly has to be again against Utah because it's always important. Third and fourth downs, always going to be important. Utah at a glance has got a lot of things that should have the attention of Duck fans. I won't say worry necessarily because it's not as if they are going to blow out Oregon on Saturday. I don't think that's the case anyway whatsoever. But Utah can certainly win. And there's one thing in particular that I think stands out. eBay Motors is always a standout, though. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, mine's a red rocket sitting out in the garage, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. With eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Gosh, I've been rolling. Got to take a break. Just kind of catch my thoughts and whatnot. Back into the mailbag with my guy Blazer Duck here. Spencer, you said the other day Utah doesn't have elite wide receivers and Utah's quarterback will not be throwing it at an elite level against Oregon. I certainly hope not. You also said that the game will be won in the trenches. If Utah's front four is really good, how about Oregon running the option to the side to avoid and mitigate their front four? Your thoughts? Well, I don't watch Utah's defense and think, oh, they're lacking speed. Are they more physical than fast? Yes. But do I feel like Oregon could just run a bunch of those, old school Chip Kelly with Michael James and Kenyon sideline to sideline sweeps and just run for 300 yards? No, I do not. I do think Oregon is capable of running the football in this game. The last time we had a great Utah run defense against an Oregon team that loves to run the football was 2019, the Pac-12 championship game. CJ Riddell went for like 200 yards or something. I don't remember the exact stats, but he ran the football exceptionally well, and Oregon did as well. So I think that the run game for Oregon schematically does need to change. It's just going to come down to, can the offensive line win their blocks? Can you execute? Can the tight ends continue to be beasts clearing out linebackers and defensive backs? Can you continue to identify which play is going to work at a particular moment? That's the question. Because I think that, physically, this is a great matchup. These are two really, really physical football teams, which is not a surprise when you have a couple of defensive head coaches. I think that Utah's front four is really good. But with regards to the scheme and, having to introduce something new, I don't doubt that Will Stein and the offensive staff will have wrinkles. You always have wrinkles, right? The offense and the way it looks changes on a week-to-week basis, just kind of subtly in small ways. I think the way Oregon has run the football the last 5 weeks, five weeks in a row since the Texas Tech game, over 200 yards on the ground. Is this the best defense they've faced? Yep. Do I also have confidence they're going to be able to run the football? At least with some modicum of success. Might not be 250 yards the way it has been the last couple of weeks, but can Oregon get in the ballpark of 200? I believe that is absolutely possible. And then with regards to their offensive talent, Bryson Barnes is a game manager. He fits that description perfectly. He'll make a couple really good throws that are accurate and well-timed. He is also someone who threw a pick six last week against USC when he had pressure in his face. He's mobile, but he's not Cameron Ward. He doesn't have Cam Ward's arm talent. He doesn't have Penix's arm talent. He's not the best quarterback Oregon's faced this year. I think a comparison to Tyler Shuck is warranted. Shuck, though, has a better arm and is a little bit bigger and slightly more mobile. But stylistically, I think there are a lot of similarities there. You want to slow down Utah's offense, you stop the running game. That's what makes them go. If you make Bryson Barnes throw the ball 30 or more times because they're behind in the game, Oregon's in a really, really good spot. Last thing here, this question from Mountain Mama Shan made. All right. Long-winded question. Thought. Last week I saw a few comments that Lanning was going to Michigan State, which holds no weight, IMO. Yeah, that's because it doesn't. But it got my dad and I talking on the way back from the game Saturday. Us as homers don't see why you would want to leave Oregon. You've got it all as a head coach. With that, you also have extremely high expectations to win, probably more than anywhere else in the country. Thoughts? Pressure to win anywhere else around the country like it is at Oregon. With that being said, I do think the fans' leash is a lot shorter than the admin's leash for Lanning if he doesn't win. Depends on how you define winning, but I mean, first of all, Oregon's a better job than Michigan State. Period, point blank, end of story. Especially with everything happening at that or surrounding that program right now, that's a mess. That program is an absolute mess. I am not worried. I do not see a job. I do not see an avenue for Dan Lanning to look elsewhere. And I think the commitment with his contract that he made and the way he talked about it made it very clear that he wants to stay at Oregon, and he's got everything he needs right now. This is a team that can go to the college football playoff, and he's in his second year. Look at some other coaches and when it's taken them or how long it's taken them to pop. Dabo Swinney won a national championship in 2016. He was the head coach in 2009. Kirby Smart didn't win a national championship until I think it's year 6. He had a 7-5 season in there. This is Lanning's first head coaching opportunity, and he's doing very well. Perfect? No. There is no coach that is perfect. Hate to break that to everybody. There is no coach that is perfect out there. I have absolutely no worry whatsoever that Michigan State would be able to lure Dan Lanning away. I don't see an SEC job coming open that he'd be interested in, and I don't think he's anxious to go anywhere because he's got everything he needs. He can recruit at a high level. He's got NIL money. He's got a cushy salary for himself. He's one of the 15 highest paid coaches in all of college football. The buyout going up to what it is and what it would cost to pull Dan Lanning away is there for a reason. And that's because Oregon and Lanning mutually agree this is a great match. And I think it is. And I think Lanning's only going to continue to get better as a coach. And with regards to the expectations, there are much worse jobs when it comes to expectations than Oregon. Absolutely. Auburn, for instance, horrible job. Expectations do not match potential over there amongst their fans. Now, they have won a national championship before. We know that. They've been to another one. That's true. They're the number 2 program in their state, and they are expected to compete for an SEC title every single year. And I think that's a little unrealistic. And there are other jobs like that. But I think the balance of expectations for what Lanning holds himself to as a coach and what the program holds him to, the admins and the fans and the alumni and the donors and everybody, I think it aligns pretty fairly. And Lanning right now, let's see, there were 13 games last year. Yeah, so he's 16-4. As my brother likes to say on the golf course after he hits a good shot, that'll do, donkey, that'll do. Does he need to eventually beat Washington? Yep, absolutely. But let's not overthink the room here. Top 10 recruiting class in 2024, pulled in a top 10 class in 2023, and he's 16-4. I think expectations and results are looking pretty good right now. And yeah, Oregon expects to win, but guess what? Lanning's winning a lot. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.